The topic that we are going to cover today is all type of data loss. A look at recovery and steps to building cleaner data set. So for the next few minutes, just see how we can avoid any kind of data loss. So first thing first, right? Data is life and blood of your organization nowadays, right? It keeps you up and running. It gives you a competitive edge over your competitors, right? So let's look at how actually you can stop your data loss and then recovery, and then how you can have a better data quality. Uh, so the first thing that we talk about is financial impact, because a lot of dollars are associated with your data loss, right? So an average cost, according to an IBM study in 2023, average cost of data loss is $4.4 million. Now that is increasing 10% this year. Up to this point, it is already at $4.8 million, an average data cost loss, right? So this is not just one thing that affects you as an organization, it affects your bottom line as well, right? Then a lot of it goes back to you if you are at a data loss, right? We have seen a lot of organizations like, say, one that happened, CrowdStrike, right? Or Change Healthcare, if you have heard about it, right? Their reputation has been damaged, right? So Change Healthcare, United, Optum, they're same companies, but they have been penetrated. They have penetrated a lot of insurance markets, and a lot of governments use them at their systems. Apparently, the guys that actually did the ransomware attack, they had access to 6 terabytes of data. And my wife got a mail yesterday saying your data has been breached from Change Healthcare. But that's the nature of the world that we live in, right? So it is very important for us to make sure that our data is safe, secure, and there is no data loss, right? So the other thing that it throws at is operational disruptions, right? So a lot of these companies, so if you're in a breach somewhere, right, we had seen that with Change Healthcare. The systems weren't available, right? They had to back out a lot of their systems. They take the whole thing offline even after they realizing that they had a breach, right? So for approximately 24 hours the systems weren't available, right? There is a lot of data loss, there is a lot of revenue loss, and there is a lot of trust loss with your clients if that kind of thing happens, right? So we have to see what type of, so we'll transition into see what type of data losses are there, right? And see how we can achieve better aspect from that. The types of data losses, human error is the first one, right? So a lot of us key in a lot wrong values. We have access to PAI, PHI, a lot of small businesses, big, medium businesses. But then if they key in wrong values, you just end up at a different aspect, right? Different side of the line which you don't want to. You click on a different link and you're breached, right? So a human error is your first and foremost factor that you're looking at. Then cyber threats, as we see cyber threats everywhere nowadays, right? Every week, every other day, you'll hear that this company or that company or a city organization, like Jefferson County City Clerk, right? The county offices were closed for a day because of the cyber threat or the ransomware attack. So it is very important for us to have robust cybersecurity infrastructure in place. Then there is hardware failure. I understand that a lot of my clients and even the government organizations have everything on site. They still manage and maintain hardware on site, and then that's one of risk for data loss. And considering that hardware gets old, they have to keep track of all these old hardware. They have to keep upgrading them, but they don't. Yet a lot of time it takes a lot of red tape to get these things upgraded. So we're looking at that. Natural disaster. This is the best thing that I love about it is we live on a fault line. I'm not sure if anyone knows about this, but we definitely live on a fault line, and we are very prone to earthquake. Now, per CMS's guidelines, the federal government guidelines, your data centers have to be 60 miles apart. So, well, where is my backup? Cincinnati. Well, you're close by, it's going to get affected anyways, right? So, think in that manner that a lot of natural disaster, even though we live Midwest, is flood and earthquake can affect us in a very, very bad way, right? The other one is software corruption. Well, we all build softwares. We know how it can get corrupted. Once in a while, a bad piece of code, CrowdStrike. Lost Delta is supposed, there's news Delta is going to sue them for $50 million because of the loss of business, right? They could not get the planes off the ground. So things like that are very, very important to understand where there is a type of data loss. Um, the next is we're going to talk about some prevention strategies of each of these. On a regular basis, backup is very important, right? You have to have backup of your data stored somewhere that can be accessible in terms of any disaster, any corruption that happens. And these backup strategies are now defined up to a point where if you go cloud, it's quickly 5 minutes, 3 minutes every time there is a backup taken and stored at a place, right? They have archive policies, deep archives, right? So all of these prevention strategies and then backups are very, very important. The next is employee training. One of the ones, the topic that we talked about right here is that your employees need training on a lot of aspects and not to click on the links. There are cyber attacks that are happening, right? Or not to send a file to someone that you don't even recognize, right? If you recognize them, just make sure that you're sending it to the right person. And then obviously robust cybersecurity infrastructure is very important nowadays with the effects, the firewalls or the encryption that we talked about. We talked about an unencrypted file on a server, right, for national. That's uncalled for. It's easy, it's cheap. PGP encryptions are $0, right? It just takes an effort from someone just to start encrypting that data set that is at rest. Hardware maintenance, we talked about hardware loss, right? So you have to keep track of each of your components of your hardware and make sure that if there are no new components out there, then you upgrade them. Disaster recovery planning. This is a huge, huge topic by itself, and it contains a lot of other details within the disaster recovery planning. But if you don't have a disaster recovery planning, you don't know what happens when a loss occurs, right? You don't know what to do when a breach occurs. So these planning, these are hard questions for disaster recovery planning, but we need to answer them, keep them noted, document them, and make sure the person responsible for it or the teams responsible for it understand how to follow through. So next we'll see some of these techniques that we have seen or used in past. The immediate step for any kind of data loss is just to unplug everything that you have going online, right? If you detect a cyber threat, just go ahead and unplug your hardware. Well, that's the most important part, right? If you understand there is a software breach, just take off the software of the web, right? To make sure, but for all of that things to happen, you have to understand what are the consequences when you do that, right? You would not have access to that hardware, you would not have access to that software for a while, but is that beneficial to you, right? All that things can be handled and worked out beforehand when you go into the data recovery stage. Your backups, right? Utilize your backups. As soon as you have a corrupted backup, you use your new backup, right? Or the backup that you have taken beforehand just comes into play. The cloud technology is right now up to a point that you would not even see if there is a backup taken, right? Or you were on a fault failover. Then there is data recovery steps. There are a lot of tools out there as soon as you hit data loss that can help you get your data recovery in place. And then you have to have professional help, right? If you don't have a team that does this kind of stuff for you on day-to-day basis, you need a lot of professional help in understanding what can be saved, what cannot be saved. right? So what I'm going to talk about next is a case study, but before that we have to understand what what this brings to the table, right? So for every kind of data loss or any kind of be a preparation into the data loss, right? We document a lot of these details, what kind of servers, what kind of hardware, what kind of software, what kind of data sets you collect, and all of these information is stored in one place, and that connects you to a different kind of risk, right? So if you are breached, if your servers or if your company organization is breached, you know what risks are and where you are and that risk, and then that would be used by your failover teams, that would be used by your lawyers, and that would be used by any other person that needs to know the information of where the breach occurred, what type of data was breached, right? Um, so one of the case studies is that I had been providing services to Commonwealth for a while, and then one of the service was that we never document all that kind of stuff. Well, now we are pushing the Commonwealth as consultant is like, let's start documenting these things. Even the vendors that come on board, no one wants to do it because it tells people, it tells Commonwealth where that actually data is stored and if the recovery is going to happen or not, what kind of data was stolen. And if the documentation is not in line and details are not provided, no one can help you in the current infrastructure that we have, right? So things have worked out well. They are online and we are going in documentation right now where everything is noted down. But so the next we will talk about a bigger data, right? So bigger information is building a cleaner data set. This is very important right now because we all talk about AI, right? Artificial intelligence. And the talk that Madison did, your artificial intelligence actually runs on data, right? They learn from your data. Now, how can they learn, right? If you don't have a good and clean data, right? So there is no way that it would learn better if you don't have cleaner data set. So the first and foremost is the validation of all of your data set, right? So any of the human errors that happens, right? Your applications are smart enough now to keep track of everything that you enter into the system, if it's right format or not, right? If you're using old system like Excel, there are different format dates in there, and you end up using different format dates. Your application, your AI would not know what to do with it, right? And that's where normalization come into play, is that you have to build all these policies and rules behind your applications that you would use specific data types or specific values that would only be used to identify certain type of data. And then the another big topic is another data governance, right? We don't. It's one of the things that is not technical. It's more of a business to understand how to govern your own data, right? If you don't have a bigger topic of data governance accepted within your organization, if you don't have, and then data governance would cover a lot of these things under its wings, where it would give you um, a dedicated governance items, right? There are teams that we have seen in bigger organizations, they have a dedicated governance team, data governance team, especially so that your data is cataloged properly, data is understood properly throughout the organization. If they're a big organization, if you're a small organization, there are other techniques to handle that, but that's needed, especially with automation and AI, right? And then once you have, and that's where the world is going right now, is automation, and it's going to take an over in a few years that the generative AI is everywhere. It has penetrated a lot of, when I say penetrated in a good means, right? So it has, the automation AI has penetrated a lot of businesses right now. Small businesses use them. We had been using Excel and Google Sheets for a long time, and we didn't even realize that they had AI built in, right? The formulas that they have, right? The packages, the macros that you use for someone, they have already, that's automation, right? It learns and it does things for you. But And then the other important aspect is the role of your leadership and creating that culture within your organization. So if there is a need for a need is for leaders to identify that there is there are issues to data loss, right? So once we talk about dollars, the leaders would probably associate dollars with data loss. And then once they understand that, they would probably bring out more understanding on how and why it is important in today's world to bring this data loss aspect up the forefront of the whole thing. So ongoing education and best practices that are out there that is needed, training is needed for a lot of organizations, and I would suggest that that if once your leadership is onboarded, that's the perfect time to get these ball rolling, and then so that we all can save our data set and have a better cybersecurity infrastructure. Well, that's it for me. If you guys have any questions. Yeah, Dwayne.
I got a question. So, in general, we expect our leaders to model the desired behavior, right? Especially around, cybersecurity and owning data and all of that,
Right.
right? How does your organization help foster that belief that it's not just the company's data, you have a responsibility for protecting that data as well? What are the processes that you guys go through in helping your clients understand the need to make sure that, because everybody gets cyber training, right? I get cyber training out of my ears, but I take it judiciously, right? But how do you guys address that with your clients and make sure they understand the benefits of it?
So one of the things that we do is we keep on trying to show them and talk to them about the data, the importance of data in day-to-day life, right? We all have smartphones, we all have smartwatches, but we don't realize that if it's unlocked somewhere, your data can be seen by anyone, right? And then there are pictures on your phone that can have your driver's license in it. And once your driver's license is out there, it's out there, right? And not saying that it's just on the phone, right? It might be with Change Healthcare, with CrowdStrike, who knows, right? So all of these bring, so we try and get our clients to understand the concepts of having better data loss at least better data loss activities or data recoveries, disaster recoveries, and then once that is established, we try to push them into data governance mode, which is much more important at this time. And then some of the things that we have to use is it's going to give you competitive edge when you have more data, clean data. You can see what's going on in your world, right? We bring all of these data together from other places. We build dashboards for you. This is what it gives you when you have good data everywhere. And then once we have cleaner data, then we go into data loss, because if you have data loss, you'd not get this. So that actually incentivizes them, saying I'm making more money when I see these things, then I'm gonna do that as well. That would help me save that money and then keep making more. All right, well, thank you all.